Hello friends, welcome to Shiksharthi. In this session, we shall be talking about functions. So let's start. Now, this being the first session on functions, we would talk about the basics of functions first. Now, when we are talking about basics, how is a function made to exist is what we are going to talk about. What are the defining features of a function to exist? For example, domain, range, etc. How do we represent the domain and range of the function, and many other things. Okay, so the very first thing that we need to discuss here is, if I write y is equal to fx, or I write y is equal to y of x, the point that you need to understand here is, in both these representations, there is a left hand side to it, and then as a result of left hand side and the equal to side, there would be the equal to sign, there would be a right hand side to it. So now what is LHS? LHS is left hand side of the equal to sign, and RHS is the right hand side of the equal to sign. So on the left hand side, if I were to compare, let us say that we had or we have here as y in one of the cases, and in the other case it is f of x. Now what is f of x? F is an operator on x. So whether we write fx or we write y of x is nothing but the same. The only thing which differs is the representation. Okay, now once you have understood this, now y and f of x are nothing but they are synonymous to each other. So this is the next point that we are trying to bring in. So kind of synonyms to each other. Now when I say synonyms, what I mean to say here is, this is nothing but the answer or the solution or we can say is nothing but the range of the function which has been given to us. So once you have understood this, the next point which comes up here is, okay, so the moment I say f of x, so we know that f is an operator on x. Now this x which is written inside the parenthesis, the f which is an operator operates on x. So if I talk about the mathematical operators, the basic mathematical operators are addition, subtraction, multiplication and division, and then the combination of these take it to another or different kind of operators. So f is an operator on x. Now once we have understood this, so when f operates on x, it is then that we get the answer or the solution or the range of the function. But then what is this x? This is a point that needs to be understood vividly. So there are few aspects that I am trying to bring on the table of discussion. First is, when we talk about x, this is nothing but set of input values. Now input values to a function. This is the first and the foremost thing that you need to understand here. And when we use the word input values, then one more adjective that could have been used here is permissible input values, values which are permitted to be inputted by virtue of the stature or the status of the function. Second point which is important here is when we say that these are input values, that means the values can be variated. You can input all permissible values to this function. In that case, we call it as a dependent variable, or should we call it as an independent variable? So when we are inputting the values, there's a lot of independence that we give to the values which are being inputted. So we will call it as an independent variable. Right? So what is the next discussion that comes forward here? The next discussion that comes forward here is, okay, we know that these are set of permissible input values. Now, by virtue of the fact that these values are permitted to be used, which is why we call it as an independent variable. Okay, next is, where is it represented? It is represented on the x-axis of the Cartesian plane. The Cartesian plane is the real xy plane. So the third thing that we were discussing here is, it is represented on the x-axis of the Cartesian plane. So these are three things which are important for the domain of the function. So the fourth thing that we can write down here is, x is nothing but a set of domain values. And as the name itself says, on a lighter note, do main things first. Do main things first on a lighter note. This is how you would remember. So when you are defining a function, the function is defined in the very first place with the help of the domain of the function, which is just like a launch pad to the function. So this is a launch pad. It launches a function. Next, once f operates on x, that means when we talk about y is equal to fx, that means now we are talking about the answer, the solution. So in that case, once f operates on x, then we talk about this entire representation, which is f of x. Now let us see how to decode this. So we call this as, these are nothing but output values to a function. Now once we know that these are the set of output values to a function, that means all these values are dependent on the domain, because if the domain values are not inputted, so you will never have the range. So we call it as a dependent variable y. Third thing which comes consequent to the first two discussions would be, where is it represented? It is represented on the y-axis of the Cartesian plane. So I am abbreviating it, and CP here refers to Cartesian plane, which is a real xy plane. Fourth, analogously, we can say is nothing but the range. And once we say that it is y is nothing but the range, the set of range values. So y is nothing but set of range values. That means this is the destination point. It defines the destination. So if I were to understand it with the help of a very small diagram that I am making here, if I say that this is the xy plane, where this is my y-axis and this is my x-axis, so x-axis values will nothing but be the domain values, and the y-axis values will nothing would be but for the range values. So once we know what is the domain and what is the range, and why have we talked about this, is I hope it would have been fairly understood. So the interest of the discussion that I have done with you, just to give it a final shape, the domain of the function launches a function, and the range of the function is the destination point of that function. In a certain sense, domain is what you are quizzing. It's a kind of a question, and range is nothing but the solution to the question or the answer to the question.